Chapter 30 of The Man with the Red Beard by David Whitelaw. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Marianne. Chapter 30 Conclusion. The clocks down in Hampstead had just finished chiming the hour of 10 when, looking up from the reading of the Times account of the doings in Norwood on the day before, I saw Myra coming towards me. She was walking quickly, and the light wind that blew across the heath fluttered little purple shadows over the white of her gown, and blew tiny tendrils of hair about her face. I had chosen the first seat east of the horse pond, and seeing me, the girl sank down breathless beside me. "I was so afraid I would be late. My sister is rather trying sometimes. I have been so anxious, dear, not knowing what was happening. The papers last night told nothing." I took her little hand in mine and told her all the tragedy of the day before. As I spoke, I watched her changing expression, horror at the details of the deaths of those whom she had called comrades. I read pity, too, in the grey eyes as I spoke of the end that had come to Merezev, but through all the compassion I thought I detected a relief that could not be kept back. I spoke to her also of Bergstoff, and for the first time of the mission which I had undertaken in his behalf. When I mentioned the £1,000 I held in trust for her, she started up. "No, oh, no, I could not take it. It seems too horrible. Besides," she went on, "I have no need of money. My sister married, as the world goes, well. I can take—" "But, Myra, perhaps there is a use you could put it to? Were you not speaking of a friend, a girl who was in Siberia?" The girl brightened. The look of the enthusiast came again into her grey eyes. "Oh, yes, yes, we will do that. It may release her. It will, at any rate, give her comforts. There's a priest I know in St. Petersburg who will arrange what he can. Paul Bergstoff was a good man." "He was," I agreed, "and he deserves a better fate. It was he who unconsciously led the police to the villa after his escape from Dartmoor. Do you know, Myra, I thought for a moment that it was you who had given the information." "I don't think I could have done that," she said, and something in her voice made me ashamed. "I opened the envelope you left with me earlier than you had said, because I felt afraid. After you left me that night I saw a man creep from the shadow of our hedge and follow you. It was Vayo, I think. I would have warned you, but I had no time. Then, when you did not come the next evening, I grew alarmed, and when the post brought no word, I just had to open the envelope. You know the rest." I nodded. "Yes, dear, it was brave of you." "No, it was not brave of me. I was afraid, I say, afraid for you. After I had faced Felix Merezev at Norwood, I came back here and sat in the cottage trembling all day. Dr. Murdon would not let me stay at the villa. He said there was work to be done where women would not be wanted. My sister thought I was ill and made me go to bed early." "Does your sister know all this, what you did in Russia?" Myra gave a little smile. "No, I'm afraid that Peggy is too much wrapped up in her house and her baby to care about politics. She thinks Russia is a hateful place, and can't make out why I went there when father died." The girl paused for a moment, then went on, her eyes staring out over the heath. "But I had to do something. I knew Russian, and I did quite well with my music teaching. Peggy went as companion to an old lady, a Mrs. Marshall, who lived in a bath chair at Brighton, and, of course, she married the old lady's nephew, like they do in the books. Merezev came to the house as a friend I had met in Russia. I think Peggy wanted me to marry him." She gave a little shudder, and we again fell into talking of the events of the last few days. It was past 12 when we parted, she to return to her home and to Peggy and the baby, I to my hotel in Bloomsbury, where I hoped by means of a razor and suitable raiment to take again my place in the world as Samuel Mannering. I spent the afternoon at my old desk in the Mercury Building. I put our chief reporter on the Norwood case, contenting myself with sifting the evidence and touching up his "copy." As I told Winston, the farther I kept from Clarina Villa the better it would be for me. The dear fellow did not question me overmuch. I turned in at the Empire that evening, and, of course, ran into Bertie Traverson. As I had done 7 months before, I took his arm and led him up the sloping passage to the American bar. A fancy prompted me to choose the same table at which I had sat with Paul Bergstoff on that former occasion. "You're quite a stranger, Sammy," Traverson said, letting his monocle drop with a tinkle on his shirt front. "Where have you sprung up from this time?" "Russia, again," I said with a smile. "And you?" He gave the little bird-like laugh I remembered so well. "I? Oh, I've been here every night since I saw you last. Don't think I've missed twice. When I have been in town, that is. Since he had seen me last. Ye gods! In a moment all that I had been through passed through my mind. I saw the corpses on the snow in Moscow, the body of Nevsky in the ottoman, the woman in the yellow dressing-gown in Soho, the glazed eyes of Felix Marazev, the cellars at Norwood, and over all, serene and full of hope, the eyes of Myra Ramsay. And this little man had practically been sitting here all the time. "What are you staring at, Sammy?" Bertie Travison's voice came to me through the maze of memories and called me to myself. "Nothing, old man. I was thinking, that's all." And I raised my glass and wished the very best of health to Bertie Travison. The trial of the two Russians, which took place some 6 or 8 weeks after the events at Norwood, will be recalled readily to the minds of those who read the newspapers of 3 years ago. The proceedings at the Old Bailey will perhaps be best remembered as having been the vaguest trial ever heard in that court. The almost entire lack of direct evidence and of identity, together with the linguistic difficulties attending the examination of the accused, caused the affair, from a legal point of view, to be anything but satisfactory. From the standpoint of the writer of this narrative, it was eminently so. I have before me, as I write, the copy of the Morning Post, in which it is reported the sentence of 5 years' penal servitude passed upon the two men known as Davidoff and Hersky by Mr. Justice Epgrave, the terms of imprisonment in each case to be followed by deportation. In his able summing up of the scanty evidence at his disposal, his lordship gets very near to the truth of the matter. In speaking of the dead man, Murdon, the only one among the brotherhood at Norwood of whom anything direct was known, his lordship commented upon the bank book belonging to the doctor, which was found among the papers in a desk in the villa, and which showed a balance of more than £60,000. There is little doubt that under the cloak of anarchy this man had been able to draw into his net younger and weaker men, upon whose mistaken sense of patriotism he had played, to the extent of getting them, in time, to do any dirty work he liked to set them. The jury, his lordship went on, must take into account the youth and bearing of the accused. They had, he thought, been more sinned against than sinning. They were, as the jury could see at a glance, of a peculiarly degenerate type. Moreover, there was nothing to connect them with the murder which had undoubtedly taken place in the upper room of the villa. The efforts of the police to identify the victim of this crime had been unsuccessful, and, as far as the men in the dock were concerned, this count must fall to the ground. As to their being accessories, at any rate, after the burglary at St. Boris Fenberg's, many articles from the Park Lane house being discovered in the Norwood cellars, there could be no reasonable doubt. Again, the evidence was complete that the prisoners took an active part in the defence of the house against the police. But it is not alone the report of the case which makes that particular issue of the Morning Post of interest to me, for in it also is an announcement that a marriage has been arranged and will shortly take place between Samuel Horworth Mannering of Guildford, Surrey, and Myra, youngest daughter of the late Reverend Silas Ramsay of Atterbury, Wiltshire. And the marriage did shortly take place, for within a month of the date of that copy of the Post, Myra and I were among the gay company at St. Moritz, high up on the roof of the world, and there are many worse places in Switzerland in which to spend one's honeymoon. We had intended going on afterwards to Moscow, but on second thoughts we decided to postpone that pleasure. That was more than 3 years ago, and we have not yet taken the journey. Perhaps next winter we will arrange a little tour and look again on the places where we suffered so much, and where we passed through the darkness to the love-light. There is no terror now in Myra's eyes, no haunting dread of what may come. In them shines only a great contentment. Sometimes I imagine I read in their grey depths that she is thinking of those she had known, of the girls who had given of their best to the cause, and who even now were paying the penalty among the snows of Siberia, or in some foul Muscovite prison. I have noticed, too, that after such times my dear wife will speak to me of money affairs, and I have been surprised, or pretended that I was, at the smallness of the balance at the bank in Guildford, where I have opened an account for her. After all, Myra can do what she likes with what is hers, and if perhaps a cheque signed by Myra Mannering sometimes finds its way to a St. Petersburg priest, it is no affair of mine. I have heard of Father Ivan, and of the good work he manages to do in the prisons of Russia, and in the convict settlements in the north. Besides, on the pay-sheet of the Mercury figures the name of Oscar Bellis, of the Rue Bria, in Paris. The salary of this member of the staff is paid regularly by money order once a week. He has entered in the books as the paper's Socialist correspondent, and it is his duty to send us any news of the labour movement that takes place in the gay city. As, however, he seldom rises till midday, and then never goes farther than the café almost opposite his lodgings, his reports are not very valuable. In fact, the only regular writing we get from "the Rat" is that on the weekly receipt he sends us. When last I passed through Paris, I looked the little man up. He appears quite happy, and is evidently drinking himself to death. I would reduce his allowance—I beg his pardon—salary, I should say, if I thought it would lead him into more sober ways. I am afraid, however, that it would only cause him to find some quicker, but no less sure, mode of quitting the world which, after all, can hold little hope for him. From where I am writing in my cosy study, I can see the lawns of my home terrace down to where the river Wey glides like a silver thread separating my garden from the gold-dusted meadows beyond. When we first took the place, the lawn and the river appeared, from this window, to merge into one another, an effect that is somewhat spoiled by the little wooden railing we have now erected. But as Myra says, and I entirely agree with her, little boys of 2 years old are so venturesome. They are all out there now on the lawn, making a vivid splash of colour on the green, Myra and Peggy and the children, and the wicker chairs and the gaudy cushions, and the tea-table glistening with china and silver. And over all the June sunshine, and all around the June roses, and in my heart a great wonderment at what Samuel Mannering has ever done to deserve it all. End of chapter 30, and end of The Man with the Red Beard by David Whitelaw.